I am Karen Walker Brown, and I am Moselle's first cousin. So, yes, I'm here doing the book review for Gut Reactions by Simon Quellen Field. Stephanie did a great job on the first 5 chapters, and I'm here with a review of chapters 6 and 7. Chapter 6 is titled Gut Microbes, and yes, my undergraduate degree in biology came in really handy. This chapter was full of mice. Yes, mice. Germ-free mice, those that are less prone to diet-induced obesity, and normal mice. The chapter started out by telling us why mice are used a lot in science labs. Mainly it's because they're mammals just like us, and believe it or not, most of the biological functions were similar or identical to ours. Who knew? Scientists started looking at the microbes in the guts of mice to see if there was a link to obesity. Microbes are a fancy name for tiny living things that are found all around us that are too small to be seen by the naked eye. They live in the water, soil, and in the air. The human body is home to millions of these microbes, and they're also called microorganisms. Some of them make us sick, and others are important for our health. The microbiome is a collection of all microbes used as bacteria, such as bacteria, fungus, viruses, and their genes, and they naturally live on our bodies and inside of us. So back to the mice. The scientists found that the mice with microbes grew fat cells faster than the mice that didn't have the microbes. So note that the fat cells were not increasing in number, they were just getting bigger. It was interesting that the author noted that our tendency to be fat is explained more by our microbe genes than our human genes. So some of those microbes are lipoprotein lipase or LPL, and those are the ones that cause the cells to take up fatty acids and for the fat cells to grow larger when those LPL levels rise. They also talked about Firmicutes as well as the Bacteroidetes that are found in various numbers in people that are obese. So it's important to have diversity in the gut microbiome. And they talked about a diet primarily made up of McDonald's or other fast food can cause a reduction in that diversity, and that can either raise or lower some of those microbes, and because of the high concentration of protein and fat. The author recommended that eating a variety of plants is best because that means that all of the microbes get to eat what they prefer to eat. And he even said that modest alcohol use, meaning a drink a week, can also raise the gut microbe diversity. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that low carb, high protein diets, which are like the keto diet, and those are often recommended for weight loss, have harmful effects on the gut bacteria due to the lack of the food for the microbes. In chapter 6, the author also talked about prebiotics, probiotics, and antibiotics and what their effects are on the microbiome. So your probiotics are cultures of bacteria, which are beneficial to us, and they aid in our gut health. And some of the fermented foods that are great probiotics are like yogurt without the sugar or the fruit, sauerkraut, pickles, kombucha, kimchi. And although those are great probiotics, many of the bacteria in those can't even survive the trip through our digestive system. So usually concentrated dried cultures of probiotic bacteria are going to be better because they contain 50% or more times the number of bacteria that we need. A prebiotic is a fiber that feeds the gut microbes, and it's actually better in preventing obesity than it is in curing it. But if you've lost weight, it could prevent you from regaining that weight. Some of the natural sources are jicama, Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes, chicory root, and dandelion root. He also mentioned asparagus, leeks, onions, garlics, plantains, and bananas. So I'm sure we all know what antibiotics are. And the thing about them is that they're not specific in which microbes they can kill. And as a result of that, they alter the state of the microbial ecology in our gut and can have an impact on our metabolism and obesity. So if we have to take an antibiotic, it's recommended to do it with a probiotic and a prebiotic so that the beneficial microbes can kind of stand up against the antibiotic and they'll be able to recover faster once we stop taking the antibiotic. The bottom line is that a less diverse microbiome can lead to obesity. So in chapter 7, the author went on to talk about genetics. And that's where it was introducing the impact of the genetic instructions in our DNA, although we can't just blame genetics for the obesity crisis. We know that you can have two people in the same family. Each of them can eat the same food. One can turn out to be fat and the other can turn out to be lean. It did say that between 40 to 70% of a person's BMI can be blamed on their parents' genes. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So while it doesn't automatically make a person destined to be overweight, because the hormones, the enzymes, and receptors all have a part to play in this as well. The author also went through some of the contributing factors in this chapter, such as hedonic eating, and that's where you're eating for pleasure. You know, how many of us live to eat instead of eating to live? This is where you can't finish one meal fast enough before you're thinking about what you're going to have for the next one. And he mentioned that this doesn't just mean that you'll be obese, but it does mean that you're more likely to overindulge in those foods that are rich in sugar, in salt, and in fat. He talked also about inflammation and how your genetic makeup can make you more prone to inflammation, which then leads to obesity. Then he talked about several genes, one of which is the OB gene. And the scientists found that obesity, that particular gene causes obesity in mice. And if that particular gene is damaged, then you can end up overeating because the leptin receptors won't let you know that you're full. That's the thing that triggers you to say, I'm full, I don't need to keep eating. But when it's not working properly, then you'll feel like you're always hungry. And that can also have an impact on your fat burning. It impacts the thyroid, which then controls the metabolic rate. So this chapter ended with a statement that there is no single gene that was found in more than 3 to 5% of all people with a BMI over 40. So this just lets us know that there are things that we can do to control our environment, and that's what we're going to explore in the next chapter. This chapter also, at the end of it, had a reference to several SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, and these are the things that are linked to obesity, BMI, or diabetes. So if you've ever had one of those genetic screenings from a company such as 23andMe, you can take that report and use this book and look up some of the SNP names to see and gather more information about whether you're at risk or to find out about your risk for obesity. So this was a couple of very technical chapters, but it was an interesting read to understand what the impact is of our microbiome and our genes on obesity. So I look forward to next week when I'll recap the chapters on the environment and the impact of when we eat on homeostasis. Look forward to seeing you next week.